Hey, John. We got the waiting room in this, so I'm finding people and pulling them in.
There's Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi there.
John Fisk, nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Andrew's on.
I see Andrew.
Hey, how you doing? Tracy, can you be able to do video
You know,
later, or is it not?
I live off grid, super rural. It doesn't work that well.
Okay.
You just trying to make us jealous?
Yeah, I'm sheltering in a lovely place. Sharing 64 acres with a couple hundred sheep and a couple horses.
Nice.
Wow.
And what do they think of all this?
They get extra hugs from me.
They're loving it then. Yeah, that's what I've remarked on. It's like, you know, there's tensions have risen and all of us are hyper aware of all this, but you go out into nature and the birds are still doing what the birds always do and the deer are still there and my cat's still doing what he does. It's like they have no, just, you know.
Yeah, we were talking, I guess that was yesterday, about what brings you comfort, and talking to my tortoise.
Right.
He doesn't know what's happening. He's cool.
Yep.
I'm just looking for our other guests in the waiting room, but we might do, Tracy, is have you up first, and then give the others a chance to come in.
Small to large instead of large to small.
Tiny but mighty.
Yeah, we're working on a multi-farm CSA box that we're calling the Mighty Small Farm Box.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
You don't see Devona in the waiting room, or Haile or Tom?
No, unless if they're using somewhat a different
Mm-hmm.
name, you know, which can happen.
Mm. Oh, that was weird.
Oh, there's Tom. Okay. So Tom should be on the way in. But I'll just, at the top of the hour, I'll just let everyone in and then get started. And where did Tom go?
That sounds good.
Yeah. He's joining. I think it was like 360 registered.
Oh, geez.
I just looked. It's crazy.
That's really incredible for the really short run up to this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear from Tracy. No pressure, Tracy.
There is no prompt to like lay the groundwork for our scale or what we do or anything. It's just the threat to food hubs. Dive right in. People have to figure it out.
Yeah, if you want to say a little bit about, you know, like what perspective you guys are coming from, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, give it a little framing. Hey, Devona.
Hey, Devona.
You're muted. There you go.
Was I saying hello on mute? I apologize if I was.
That you were practicing your sign language.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So nice to see you all.
Yeah. Nice to see you. There's Tom and Tracy who's been on a bit. There's Tom.
Tom.
Hey, everybody.
I don't see Haile just yet, but I'll just open it at 3 and we'll get started. So Devona, I'll kick it off, and then you can give your introduction, and then John will kind of introduce the topic for our guests, our panelists, and then go to Tracy and Tom and Haile.
Sounds good. I have limited battery left, so I'm going to try to video my way through this whole thing, but I might end up having a call.
Okay.
Okay. No worries. All right, here I'm going to open up the waiting room. Got 70 people in there.
Wow. I should also be like, I am in my food hub right now, so like this is supposed to be on.
Safety is a question, yeah. Well, welcome everybody to the Food Hub listening session. I'm Andrew Carberry with the Wallace Center. We'll be co-hosting this today with the National Center for Appropriate Technology for the next hour. And I'm joined by John Fisk, my colleague here at the Wallace Center, and Devona Bell with the National Center for Appropriate Technology. And Susan Schemp, as well with the Wallace Center, is on notes. So this call will be recorded and shared afterwards, as well as the notes from everything. The plan for the hour is to, we'll just set the stage a little bit, and then we've got 3 guests that are going to share how their food hubs are adapting, what the challenge was and how they've adapted. And then we'll open up for discussion to hear from you on your adaptations, as well as hearing what type of support you're looking for. And John will introduce that in a little bit. But as we get started, I want to invite you to close out any other distractions, anything else on your screen that might be going on. Welcome you to turn your video on. That was off by default, but it's always great to see faces here. There won't be presentations, so if we can have videos, we'll be able to participate together. On the bottom of the screen, if you haven't been using Zoom a lot, there's a chat box you can use. We'll refer to later to show your questions and solutions, as well as you can click on participants and then raise your hand. We'll be using that as well. The waiting room. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure everyone can get in. There we go. So I invite you to take a couple deep breaths here. It's been, as we talk about the pandemic and response, and I know a lot of you are working on the ground and really in the thick of it. So I invite you to take a deep breath and just notice any tension you're feeling and let that go. And it's really a gift to be able to focus on one thing, and invite you to be able to bring your full presence to your peers here that are on the call. It's great to see the videos turning on. But being present to each other, can be a gift, and listening. And then also as we can step out of the thick of things, maybe even think about, some of the longer term, the future that we're creating with these changes, with so many changes happening, thinking about, instead of the immediate response, just considering the bigger picture as we discuss. And as this is there's not presentations, it's really a peer-to-peer call. So hoping we can come with a spirit of learning, and encouraging each other, and leaving maybe with a little bit more energy to go back and do the great work that you're doing. And so with that, I want to turn over to Devona to introduce yourself and NCAT.
Hi, folks. So great to see so many friends, old friends from work and my previous world when I was with the Wallace Center. I am Devona Bell. I'm NCAT's Director of Sustainable Agriculture and Local Food Systems, and that includes a program called ATTRA, and I hope many of you have heard about ATTRA. ATTRA serves farmers and ranchers and ag professionals across the U.S. We provide technical assistance and a lot of resources. The ATTRA website itself has more than 850 resources. That includes publications, tip sheets, webinars, tutorials, videos, podcasts, and much, much more. I'm really thrilled to be partnering with the Wallace Center to hold this conversation with food hubs to learn about how food hubs are pivoting during this COVID-19 pandemic and what opportunities that may bring for farmers. So I'm really happy to be here, and thank you to the Wallace Center for holding this conversation together.
And I think I'll just jump right in. Thank you, Devona. Really great to be on with you, and thanks for co-hosting this with us. I know NCAT's been involved in regional food value chains for a long time like we have, so it's great to be partnering. I'm John Fisk. I'm with the Wallace Center at Winrock International. I want to just jump right in so we can maximize our time with all of you and with our panelists. So a little bit of framing about why we're here. I think the most immediate is that this kind of the stay in place policy and protocol we have has really changed the marketplace dramatically. And I don't have to tell you guys that. So food hubs and other businesses are in transition, trying to adapt around those stay-at-home. They're trying to be able to be of service to their communities, use the resources and assets they have in order to address food security needs, but just as importantly, to keep their businesses alive and to get through this, and so that they can continue their important work once we kind of pass through this immediate and emergency situation. So today, the emphasis is really on identifying those solutions in those transition and what's working. I mean, I think we're all struggling with common difficulties. So what are we seeing that's working? What can help others? What are you finding that's working? We really wanted to be thinking about what's benefiting the growers that are in this, because a lot of your value sets and target audiences are the growers that you're trying to provide markets for, but also the consumers, right? And your other value chain, if you will, partners. So what's working? Let me see, I'm just looking here. And we're going to be identifying those and kind of sharing those out more broadly beyond this as well. And then I think later in the call, we'll kind of say, well, what's needed? What can we do as Wallace Center, as NCAT and other nationally focused organizations to continue to support you? And what can we message to others that may have resources, whether it be USDA coming through CARES Act, or whether it be Foundation and others that are looking for direct ways and on the front lines information to be able to respond to. So kind of with that framing, we've asked 3 people that we know are leading and having transitionary, seeing and doing transitionary innovations. And we want to kind of prime the pump, I think, with their words and let them talk. And that would be Tracy Harding, who's general manager at Capay Valley Farm Shop out in Northern California. Tom McDougall, who's the founder of 4P Foods in Virginia. And it may actually be multi-state, but I think you're headquartered in Virginia, Tom. And then Haile Johnston, who's the co-founder of Common Market, which was birthed in Philadelphia, but is now had children, and they're now all over the country, if I could use that metaphor. So I think, like I said, later on we'll get to those needs, but let me turn it over now and kind of ask them to address, and have Tracy start us off with what is the threat that you're seeing to the food hubs and farmers? What does it feel like, right? And how are you responding? What's working for you? What are the solutions and innovations that your organizations have developed? And what are you seeing around you that you may want others to hear about? So let's start with Tracy, and then we'll move to Tom, and then over to Haile.
Okay, thank you. So we're a small food hub in Northern California, farmer owned, founded in 2007. We're aggregating about 40 farms and ranchers in the Capay Valley into the greater Bay Area. A general threat to the food hubs and farms, as we're seeing it, is just this rapidly changed and changing marketplace, having the capacity to adapt, increasing labor and time to create a pivot amongst all the turmoil and the unknown future. So Capay Valley Farm Shop business model is not direct to consumer, and when things started changing the same week that some of us were in New Orleans, it was intensifying, and we decided to stick to our non-direct and not pivot to a direct to consumer. Hearing from folks that would be supported in the marketplace if we could do it, but we decided to stay with our wholesale model, having clarity from trying it in the past, a long try at building boxes and trying to sell direct and not finding it profitable. So the week that we were in New Orleans, our sales plummeted to half of what they were the week before. And then 2 weeks later, we had our best week of the year. We have 2 remaining customers. 75% of our customers are corporate food service, primarily in tech companies and a little bit in higher ed. Those accounts are all not serving their clients right now. We had 2 remaining customers, one a bakery that sells into an online grocery store and the online grocery store. So flipped our customer base and have been selling quite a bit to the online grocer. We've also engaged in inter-hub commerce that we had been talking about for years and not quite finding our way to making it happen. So we've been selling and buying and working cooperatively with the Mendo Lake Food Hub, with Feed Sonoma, with the Tahoe Food Hub, with Drop, which is a food hub in Reno, and Mandela Partners in Oakland. Many of them have added box programs, either buying clubs or building household scale boxes and delivering, and they don't have enough products, so we're able to help them there. We created a new market that we're calling Sheltering Chefs. All the chefs at the tech companies are still getting our availability lists, and we've encouraged them to consider creating buying clubs, and some of them have. So those have been some nice orders too, where the chefs are getting deliveries to their home and then repacking for their community. We dropped down to 1 delivery day pretty quickly, and just this week are adding back a second day, keeping a tight eye on cash flow, of course, and you know, reducing our staff to operating as leanly as possible. We did apply for and receive the PPP support, and have hired since then. We're working with one of the things that we're seeing in selling primarily to the online grocer and then Interhub is that those are volume sales, and those aren't benefiting our smaller producers. And we really want to create a strong channel for those producers as well as we move forward. So that is our next challenge. We're working with a handful of smaller farms who didn't consider CSA as an option because CSA was a dying model when they began their operations, working with them to see how we can support them to do a multi-farm CSA program to help them as they come out of the shoulder season. And that's my summary.
That's great, Tracy. It's great that you were able to receive funding from that PPP program. Are you seeing others around you do that as well, or is that novel from your perspective?
We know that other people have applied as well.
Mm-hmm.
We feel lucky in our, you know, we live rurally, so we have a good relationship with our bank, and we're able to get the application in quickly and approved quickly. And it seems like being on it was important.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, now to the other coast. Maybe we'll ask Tom to talk about what you're seeing and what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. First, just to pause and acknowledge to everyone that's still like operating. I have felt the emotional paradox of wanting and needing to step in and serve those that we serve, or, you know, keep the doors open for our farmers, keep the doors open for our staff, keep the doors open for the people that rely on us to get food in particularly underserved communities, conflicting very much with the fact that I'm putting myself and my team at risk every single day. That's heavy. It's super, super heavy. And I know that you all carry that too. So on that note, we, like Tracy, we're in New Orleans, and the wheels started to come off the bus. Our business is a hybrid model where about half of our business revenue was from wholesale accounts. University of Virginia is our biggest customer. James Madison University is our second biggest customer. Restaurants, third biggest category. UVA and JMU closed on the same day. It was the Wednesday we were in New Orleans. So about half of our revenue dried up. The other half, however, was the direct-to-consumer CSA type box thing. We do produce, meat, dairy, value-added items there. So in New Orleans, I had my core management team with us, and we sort of hatched the plan to lean hard into the B2C stuff. It was a little bit serendipitous that in February we had been part of a founding group that put together a loosely formed organization called the Eastern Food Hub Collaborative. It was 15 food hubs up and down the Eastern Seaboard that locked ourselves into a room for 4 days in February to formalize. You know, Tracy, you had touched on it on the West Coast there. We've all been talking for years about interhub trading, and this sort of framework was almost like a trade agreement to formalize a little bit of that trading, and that has come in really handy right now. So what has happened is our B2C side has really exploded. Our wholesale side, like I said, wound down. I shifted all of the staff and resources from that side of the house to the BC side of the house, we're up almost 900% in sales in the last 4 weeks. Our problem right now is we can't hire enough people. We hired almost 50 people so far in the last 4 weeks. So we were 25 going into this. We're 75 as of the end of next week, which has been an incredible blessing. It is, we more than made up for the markets that closed. Tracy, to your point, we are seeing though that some of our volumes now are going to a point where it doesn't help a lot of the small farms that want to move 3 cases when we're trying to move 3 pallets. So we're partnering again, as we always have, with Local Food Hub to help them grow their fresh pharmacy program. And that's like the perfect scale to match up a lot of those farmers, and all of that food is destined for low-income food access programs. And we also sort of took a ride on setting up an organization called the Mid-Atlantic Food Resilience and Access Coalition, which is essentially an operating coalition that is connecting a lot of the like school systems and restaurant workers and transportation folks and farming organizations in mostly Virginia and DC, and slowly scooting our way into Maryland to try to coordinate a lot of the response, because and the thought there being to strategize and think regionally, but execute, act hyper locally, but connect players and partners that maybe weren't connected before. Like there's a cab company in Charlottesville that wanted to mobilize their 600 vehicles and drivers to be part of this response, but had never talked to anyone in DC. And meanwhile, the farmers markets organization in DC were worried about how they're going to support their farms, and also what about they have a low-income child feeding center program that they do with fresh produce, but how would we get it there? So we ended up connecting a restaurant group that had 800 furloughed workers with the cab company who had 600 cabs, with the farmers market organization that has all these farms, with a grant maker who gave a check to basically buy food from the farms, hire the restaurant workers to put it into boxes, to hire the cab company to deliver it to the children's doors. And it's that sort of dot connecting that we think we'll be able to continue to do with this coalition, and are now raising an emergency fund to help to continue to support that. And we're recently hired by the DC government to pack 25,000 emergency food boxes. So we just had to lease another warehouse last week and staff that up, and we start that project tomorrow, where it'll be 6,000 to 8,000 boxes a week going out the door to DC government, who then will do the last mile. So it has been busy, and my wife is due with our second baby in 15 days. So it's busy.
900%. That is busy.
Yeah. It's been
so those
weird.
25,000 emergency food boxes, that's all regionally sourced product?
Not yet, but so what they really needed was like a team of people that knew how to take a unit and put it into a box and then put it on a truck, which is like, that's a thing that we do. But that's like Goya beans and whatever rice, and a box of no-name pasta, and a box of ragu tomato sauce, right? So for the peanuts, we convinced them to source locally. It was the biggest peanut order a peanut grower had ever gotten, so that's a win.
Yep.
The thing that I am trying to finagle with this fund is using the money of the fund effectively to cover the delta between industrial food and local food, so that it's not ragu tomato sauce that's going in. Our hope, and like they have $1 budget for the sauce, but tomatoes are right around the corner here in the Mid-Atlantic. I would like very much to buy as many tomatoes as we possibly can from local farmers, and then hire all those restaurant workers and chefs and restaurant owners that are currently sitting idle to turn that into a whole bunch of sauce, and pay the drivers to get it to us to put in the box to deliver to them. And that's going to be a fully loaded $5 jar of sauce where everyone in the food system is being paid. And the fund that we're raising is meant to cover that $4 delta. And I see it both as a solution to really galvanize the regional system like that, but also as a solution to what looks like it might be a problem. As we started to try to source some of these ingredients, like we can't get our hands on enough canned vegetables because everyone in the world right now is trying to procure canned vegetables. Sauce is the next on the list, where the sauce bottlenecks are starting to throttle. They're there, but it's moving slow. So we might be able to use the local food system to be part of that gap that might exist.
Fabulous. Thanks, Tom. That's great. That's great. Haile, let's turn to you. Haile Johnston, Common Market.
Hey, everybody. thanks for the opportunity to share. I enjoyed seeing many of you in New Orleans when our collective reality shifted pretty quickly. So I want to echo a lot of the sentiment that Tracy and Tom shared. I think we're all enjoying a bit of craziness at the moment. So Common Market, just to give you a little bit about our background, we were founded about 12 years ago in Philadelphia as a regional aggregator, distributor, food hub, and really with a focus on improving food accessibility in lower income and underserved communities, as well as farm viability in our regional agricultural communities. And from the beginning, had a focus on institutional food service. So I think we're rare to some degree in that schools and hospitals and elder care were among our first customers. About 4 or 5 years ago, four-ish years ago, we began to think about bringing our model to other communities, other regions in partnership with local leadership, and launched our first replication site in Atlanta, Georgia, and then 2 years ago in Houston, Texas. And so currently in Philadelphia, we serve between New York and Northern Virginia in what we call Common Market Southeast, Atlanta Metro and Birmingham, Alabama, and then down in Common Market, Texas, from Houston to Austin. And you know, our focus on the institutional continued to be the most significant aspect of our business until that week in New Orleans, where volume fell off precipitously, and you know, had this moment like, well, what are we going to do? And I don't think any of us knew what we were going to do at that moment. But you know, I think, like Tom said, we were very committed in the conversation that my co-founder and co-director, my wife Tatiana, and I had was, well, how do we maintain our commitments to our growers to ensure that they stay in business, and also to ensure that they're able to continue to engage their farm workers, and as well as many of the makers and processors, and how they continue to sustain their commitment to their workers. We wanted to sustain the commitment to our own workers, and try to minimize the impact of this crisis on them and their income and their families, and certainly their health. And then finally, how we could potentially pivot in this moment to do more to meet food access needs in communities, and in particular within vulnerable communities. So our business shifted from doing probably 60% of our annual revenue in institutional food service to doing probably 75–80% of emergency food relief work, primarily under contract with departments of emergency management in different cities, and we're working to provide boxes of all local food to a variety of city agencies and community partnerships, and I'm going to say in all of the regions where we're working. So some of that work, I think I saw Sue Beckwith on the screen earlier. So some of the work in partnership with amazing leaders like Sue Beckwith down in Texas and Elgin, Texas, working to connect local and sustainably grown Texas food to folks in Central Texas, as well as in Houston. In Atlanta, an interesting partnership happening with the housing authority there, where the housing authority is working with us to connect, again, all locally sourced product to seniors who are generally shut in, and don't have the ability to get out and get food. So that involved us doing something that we don't traditionally do, which is building direct delivery and home delivery service and capacity. Something I have always resisted, and this has been a time where we've had to revisit all the things that we said that we don't or wouldn't do, but are beginning to do to meet community need. And then finally, I think the other example, which is definitely the most significant and has me feeling my age at the moment, is a partnership we're doing with the City of New York, Department of Emergency Services, And we're bringing 3,000 boxes a day up to New York of all local food, locally sourced products. And that's a pretty interesting box because it includes protein, bread, and then a number of produce items, as well as New York dried beans that are being packed up at Farm Bridge and supplied by the folks at Headwater Food Hub. So developing a number of different partnerships to meet folks' needs, also growing and hiring. This has been by far the most active week that we've ever had in all of our geographies, hiring staff at a time when we were concerned that we were going to have to lay off. And I think most importantly, to share some of the stories of our farmers and partners, hearing how they were at the precipice of laying their teams off or had already laid their teams off and have brought folks back. There were people who were about to shut down and they said, oh man, the call that I got from you has enabled us to hire our team back and to keep operations going. Or our baker who's now saying that they've never baked so much bread in their history, and they've been able to hire their whole team back. So it's amazing to see this reverberate through the rural communities that we partner with, as well as, again, specifically meeting the food security needs of folks. Yesterday, I said I was feeling my age because, part of this for us was flexing muscles that we didn't have in our organization. We did have a farm share program that we did as a direct to consumer program mainly through workplaces. So again, an aggregated CSA model that we did mainly as a workplace wellness program, but we had never packed 3,000 boxes in a day in that way. So working alongside our pack team on the line, showing them that this is possible and how we were going to get it done. And then hearing the stories of impact as folks in New York have been sending us emails and messages about how gratifying or how just how appreciative they were to receive healthful food, and that it's actually from local farms, and there to be that connection to local agriculture in that way. One in particular where the woman said, she signed up for these emergency boxes. They have been arriving. They've mostly been shelf stable foods, canned goods, dry goods, a lot of things with a lot of sugar and salt. And when she opened up our box, she said it made her cry because it made her feel like somebody actually wanted her to live. And she was just so appreciative of just the extra effort that the city as a whole has taken to ensure the health and well-being of its residents. And that process to see it unfold is also amazing. We're sending our trucks up there. We're being met by the National Guard, who is the one, I'm going to say security, but also the labor unpacking these trucks and packing them into taxi cabs and limos as they're making deliveries to people who are shut in around the city. So it's just been a wild ride, and we're not done. No idea when this is going to end, but happy to serve our community.
Yeah, that's terrific, Haile. Really inspiring stories, and the really a lot of gratitude for you and the team for pushing yourselves into making those things happen and taking on those roles. It makes me think about I've been impressed by a lot of the public school systems that have transitioned really quickly to get food to kids, but I wonder about the quality of the food, and are they being able to do some of the supply chain pieces that you and the others are talking about to get those boxes with healthy food. So just something to think about. So I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew and Devona now, who are going to kind of engage our almost 200 folks out there listening and wanting to engage with us all together. So Andrew and Devona, I turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, John. Just a quick comment on the school food. I am impressed down here in rural Virginia also. And however, I did peek into the bags that were going out, and they were pretty bad ingredients. So yeah, it could happen better, at least down here in our neck of the woods, that's for sure. I think I heard a common thread from the three of you that spoke that it's been pretty rough to to purchase from small scale farmers during this kind of crisis, that you're really needing volume. And so what made me really want to have this call and discussion was that I'm hearing on the other side from a lot of farmers who used to have wholesale markets to restaurants, for example, and they have no market now, and they're trying to then recreate the wheel for themselves to change to direct markets, whether that is direct to door or some CSA pickup model. And just love thoughts on what options are out there for the smaller size, whether it's teeny to more of a small to mid-scale size farmer, with the role of food hubs today.
Devona, are you asking the presenters, or are you asking? Yeah, okay. So,
yeah, I was asking the presenters if they
yeah,
could.
Tom, Haile,
Yeah.
and Tracy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, we're doing a few things, and I would also echo what Tom said in that the volume of activity that we're doing, and especially given the where we are in the seasonality, has presented fairly significant challenges for the small farmer to participate in significant ways, in particular in the Philadelphia region. With that said, we're trying to find ways to, one, maintain commitments to all the farmers that were in our network already. There's been, I think, some interesting innovations happening in Georgia, where they are including urban and peri-urban ag product into some of the boxes that they're packing for specific communities. The other thing that we've done down there is open our facility to the Atlanta community farmers markets to do aggregation of the small farmers that were coming to market previously, where they're now packing their boxes and then doing direct market activity. So it's a new model for them, reaching communities directly, but it's been a way that we can contribute to including the small farmer and especially the urban farmer in the response. So not us not buying their food directly, but leveraging our infrastructure for their benefit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, on our end, it's similar. It's the thing we've really tried to lean into, as I mentioned, is this partnership with Local Food Hub. They have a fresh pharmacy program that's specifically to serve at-risk and high-needs families. And that's like the perfect, it's growing rapidly, but it's growing from a smaller original number. And so that's catching right up to where 4P Foods was prior to this. And so really staying committed to that core group of farmers and allowing them to work with us still and opening up the market still. It's just that instead of selling to restaurants, they're now selling to fresh pharmacy programs, which is working. The other thing we've offered, and this is more of a hub related thing, but I'll offer it anyway. We've hacked together some pretty silly but highly functional spreadsheets, Google Sheets, for our direct to consumer thing. So for any farmer that's trying to like stand up, figuring out how to build a CSA quickly, or like the technology component can be both frustrating and sometimes expensive and sometimes slow. We've offered to open source that workbook. If anyone wants or needs the workbook, we're happy to share it and give it to anyone that wants to try to stand up a thing. So because what we have been seeing, and I imagine a lot of you food hubs out there are seeing the same thing, is all the handful of our farmers that have direct to consumer relationships already, whether it's because they have a little farm store or they've got a growing CSA membership, whatever, they're also experiencing the same growth where the farm stores are being flooded with people, which is great. But those who hadn't had that infrastructure set up yet, they're now trying to figure out how to indeed engage directly with the consumers who are not wanting to go to the grocery store, but instead go to the farm. So that's the thing we've offered. Again, fair warning for anyone that's on here, if you want, happy to share it. It is clunky, but functional.
That's super awesome. And Tracy, you mentioned that you guys are working with small farmers on helping them establish multi-farm CSAs. Love to hear more about that and any other input you want to give regarding sourcing from the smaller or small to mid-scale farmers.
Yeah, well, that project is in its infancy, and we're offering to coordinate with the small farms and, you know, provide the distribution if that's what works best for them. But we really want it to be farmer-led. So just offering resources. We've offered our facility for packing boxes and our walk-in, of course, and storage for packaging, purchasing, and just continuing to share resources, sending out updates to the farmers to let them know how we're doing and what opportunities we're seeing for them.
Thanks. Andrew, should we go through some of the questions and ask more to come in?
Yeah, but it looks like there's been some Q&A happening in the chat. So thanks, Haile, for chiming in on where the funding was coming from. And the Tom, you've got some takers on the CSA worksheet, and also the Lindsay with the CSA Innovation Network can share it with that network, which would be great to get that out there. But I wonder too, but since there's so many people on this call and other food hubs, if others have been making moves and adapting to support the farmers that you purchase from and the community. So I wonder if anyone, you can either put in the chat box or raise your hand, and if you've got something you'd like to share of a different response that you're making or something similar in a different community. So we, you know, welcome those, since this is a large community and want to hear from other folks. And if you have questions, you can also, you know, direct those to the presenters or to the group. There was one here about grocery stores. Are you supplying grocery stores to help them feed the communities, or seeing changes in that? So I wonder if any of the panelists had any thoughts on that, or are serving grocery stores and seeing changes there.
We do a little bit with grocery stores. We are seeing like our Whole Foods accounts have all but dried up, but more the community owned and operated independent grocery stores, their sales have gone up as they continue to stay open and serve their community. So that it has been great. And it makes sense too that Whole Foods would hunker down into their supply chains, and the independent grocers would lean into supporting local farmers. So that's been a good thing.
Tom, that does surprise me. I understand it's a time that many hunker down, but I'm super surprised to hear that the Whole Foods accounts dried up. Is that just because they're able to order larger volumes easier and quicker through their larger supply chains?
Likely that's it. You know, we're a clunky small food hub, and we're not exactly part of their streamlined procurement process. And so we add a little bit of a layer of complexity when they're trying to order from us, and that's on us to get better at that. But we're not yet, and so therefore that little bit of friction is just enough to make it outside of their standard operating procedures for procurement, and therefore, yeah.
Okay, so it looks like Shonda, if I said your name correctly, from Growth Food Carolina in South Carolina, has seen an increase in Whole Food sales. Not a large increase, but an increase.
Nice. I need to get your cheat sheet.
Yeah, yeah. I would also share we've seen a pretty significant increase in just retail sales broadly. I'd say more with the smaller community grocers and the co-ops, but Whole Foods is definitely doing more. You know, the interesting thing, I mean, if folks have been tracking what's happening across the country with agriculture, the commodity prices have plummeted, and you know, large farms are dumping and plowing newly harvested product back into the fields. So, and largely because, right, the supply chain, like half of their supply chain, I mean, let me flip that. Half of their market has also disappeared as well, where they were selling 50% of everything they were growing into food service. whether it be restaurants or institutions. And so the market has not adjusted yet, and retail markets can't uptake all of that supply entirely because it's just an impossibility. So we're seeing prices drop significantly, and this is actually something that folks need to be tracking and be really concerned about. Is if commodity prices fall through the floor, it's going to have significant downward pressure on pricing for regional food systems, and so we need to be prepared for that.
Can you say more about that, Haile? So if commodity prices fall through the floor, it's going to drag down local food prices as well. Is that the idea?
Well, it's just going to make the gap between, say that large farm tomato grown in Florida or summer squash, fill in the blank product grown on a larger scale. It's going to make the price between that product so much more, significantly larger than the pricing that small local farms have been enjoying in recent years. So it will become harder to compete. It will become harder to make the argument for shelf space. It's just going to be harder to sell product when the gap is that large, as well as the impact that this crisis is going to have on our economies. The other significant challenge that I anticipate is another byproduct of all of this is going to be a significant decline in global export, right? So if farms don't have the global market to export to, the first thing they're going to do is dump product domestically. And that flood of product is going to have, again, that downward price pressure, and we're all going to feel it.
Do you think that's also going to mean less imports, though, from Mexico and other places south of us?
It could, yeah. It may very well, yeah.
So there could be some balancing there, but probably not fully. Yeah.
We've had a lot of chats come in. Andrew, are you on that better than I am? I've been seeing them popping up, but they're hard to keep track of. But definitely one that keeps coming up is asking about tools, digital tools and other.
Yeah, and I saw that Shelley Oswald had shared about Road Warrior. I don't know if you are able to unmute and talk about that, since it sounds like something may be useful for others too.
Sure. Road Warrior, we used to have school buses, so I did routing and used custom software, and even back in the days when MapQuest just got started, used that. But I found Road Warrior, I think it was through Harvey may have mentioned it. And I started using that software, and it is so nice. You can save favorites on it. So you can have like repeat customers, you can have notes in there. You can have phone numbers where you can text or call people. So going through the route, it makes it just incredibly easy to maintain a route, and it gives you the time. Like you can set that you're going to be, I average about 5 minutes at a stop is what I set my time schedule to be. And as you work through there, it will do like a printout where you can like guesstimate where your times are going to be. You can put layovers. You can schedule, like if there's some that you have to get at a certain time, you can do some things with that. So it's pretty flexible and incredibly powerful for $10 a month. So it's like, to me, it's like, how much is your time worth? And, the time that I would spend manually trying to route that is so much more than $10.
That's awesome. Tom McDougall, you mentioned Routific is what you use. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's a lot more expensive than $10 a month, though. So I got to go check out Road Warrior. Routific is all those things as well. It's just more expensive. So start with Road Warrior first.
Yeah.
And then there's a question, and it was just seconded, so I want to pay attention to it, about understanding from all the changes that you've made, what do you want to keep as a part of your programming going forward? And that's you know, a good one because things have changed quite a bit. Things have opened up, regulations have opened up. So what do you, of what's changed for you, what do you want to keep going forward? And this might be our last kind of question, and then we've got a shift. But let's see, Tom, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah. First, just the hub-to-hub relationships that are getting deeper. I hope that stays and continues to go deeper. We're working with a lot of folks in North Carolina and South Carolina right now, and it's been it's awesome. They've helped save the day for us, at least. I think Jesse from Fresh List is on this call. We had never transacted before this crisis, and now we're transacting, I think, every week by way of Happy Dirt in conjunction with First Hand Foods. And there's like multiple hubs all buying and selling to each other and on a weekly basis now, which is cool. And Haile, we're trying. We almost came to you for those potatoes. So talking to the common market friends as well. So I hope that doesn't go away and only goes deeper. Similarly, some of the really meaningful relationships that we are rapidly building with a lot of the nonprofit organizations in and around our community mean a lot, both for the work we do with farms and some of the more underserved communities in the Mid-Atlantic. So very much hope to keep some of those. I don't know that we'll be continuing to use the cab company to deliver our vegetables at the tail end of this thing. That's probably not a particularly scalable thing that we want to keep, but they've been really awesome in the interim. So continue to be friends with them.
I'd share much of the same. The interhub dealings have been really rewarding. Folks that we've had relationships with and been able to lean on when we have problems to solve, but now great to be selling each other produce. Also, the conversations in the scurry to find new customers, you know, having more support from the nonprofits that we've gone to when we have food safety questions or something specific, but to ask them to help us find new customers has been really rewarding. Conversations with the food banks and other hunger entities are conversations we weren't having before. So it's really great to do all this networking in the hustle to keep it going so the farms have a market.
Yeah, and real quick, I think the thing that I would say that I want to keep is a dialogue around what health equity means and what food equity means, and an opportunity for the most vulnerable people to enjoy locally grown, sustainably produced foods beyond times of crisis. I think it's really crazy that you know, the what emergency food assistance has looked like has been the lowest quality food in many places that people can procure. And it's been an absolute blessing to provide some of these folks such high quality food in a time of need. And I want to see that become the norm and for local and regenerative to be the dominant food system.
That's terrific. So I think at this point we're going to try to change direction just a little bit and focus on what's next for us in terms of what do you guys need? Let us know what you need that we can help with as a national network, as an organization that may have a voice into DC, into USDA, and same with NCAT. You know, they have their networks and voices, and so if we were to continue trying to be of service in this way and hosting these conversations or other types of outputs that might support your transitions and connections, we want to hear about that. So if any of the resource folks have thoughts on that, or if any of you out there want to pop that in the chat box or raise your hand and voice it yourself, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I'll just say that supporting NSAC's policy recommendations stands out for me, as well as the Harvard Law School Food Law and Policy Clinic. The document that they've put together are really solid.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like we're getting direction from those folks in terms of what's going to happen with the CARE funding through USDA. Maybe so continued updates around that, or continued pointing out to those resources. I think there's probably also continued dialogue with USDA on how that money gets spent and implemented, and how those use of those funds are being interpreted.
John, speaking of funding, Tom mentioned a partnership with the city of DC, and I think Haile was talking about working with the New York Department of Emergency Management. I'm not sure I got that terminology right. I'm wondering if other like new funding partnerships, new sources of capital or money have emerged for other people, because this seems like a really great time to start some new relationships that might be able to last.
Right. So if others have those kind of financial partnerships, I saw another one in there around redirecting meat to, I think, the food bank from the food hub, using donations to pay for that. So whether it be philanthropy or just donations, so there's another idea. But if anybody else has other ideas around municipal emergency funds, or a line on future emergency funds, right, that you think might be coming, that would pay for some of these supply chain issues.
Hi, this is Ursula King.
Hi, Ursula.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I just wanted to say that there are grant monies to form these collaborative networks. The Rockefeller Foundation just sponsored an enormous prize called the Food System Vision Prize. It was Envisioning Food Through 2050. It was a worldwide grant process. We applied in Middle Tennessee. We did not move on to phase 2, but it gives us, it was a public grant process, so it gives us access to everyone who applied. So even though we did not move on to phase 2 of a 4-phase process, we can apply next year. And we also get access to everyone else who applied. Also, the USDA NIFA has a community food projects grant that has a deadline on June 3rd. These are really programs and funding available so people can form collaboratives. And one of the things I heard from everyone is, one of the things that happened for you is that your collaboratives started forming. So I've done a lot of work in food security. I'm an ecologist, but I primarily and have done work in agriculture for a very, very long time. And really, where you see local food and local food resources increase dramatically is when you have these large collaboratives. And food hubs, aggregating food is only one small part of a collaborative. So I think that my hope, I'm writing an article right now for a local magazine because I like to do a lot of informing of the public around food security and what, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. The gentleman was talking about, what Haile was talking about was that around food security and food insecurity and how that has always existed, and what this crisis has brought forward, like most crises do, is exacerbating the systematic problems that already existed within our food system. So, you know, you've seen the news reports. The New York Times, they're writing articles almost every day now, CNN, about a lot of the food system is crashing. Major processes are closing down. You know, meat processors in particular at first, because their employees work so shoulder to shoulder. But what my hope would be was that out of this, there is an opportunity for local food to not only stay at the level it's at, but to be looked at as an issue of food security for everyone. One of the reasons we know from Italy that their food systems had an easier time moving through the crisis there is because their food is produced very locally, right around their urban centers. They have a very different supply mechanism than we do, even though they do import a lot of food from Northern Africa and whatnot. So, but they do have a very different food supply system than we do here in the United States. We have a long distance commodity food supply system. And so one of the things I think that as these relationships form, I think people can think about how those collaboratives can build into larger food system mechanisms, and there is a lot of funding and a lot of thought around that from both USDA through their NIFA program and some other programs. I'm also part of a grant right now that is being applied for by the Agrarian Trust, and that is in 6 regions in the United States, and those 6 regions will, if we get it, will serve as models for how to build these food collaboratives that will focus on supplying food locally. That means, for instance, in Tennessee, where I live, Florida produce from November to March is local, or Florida citrus, I should say, because that's our closest citrus. So I just want to put that out there, because I think that the work that's being done is incredible. We have a lot of amazing work going on here in Tennessee, specifically in Nashville, around this issue, with organizations that I know well, but I am not directly involved with. They are going to be in the article I'm writing, though. And a lot of different things besides what you're talking about. But I just do want to put that out there.
Thank you, Ursula. That was really great. And I think that a lot of us have that on our minds, right? It's like these are emergency actions around the food systems, but what can it mean longer term? What can it mean for the repositioning of how we feed ourselves? And what does it mean for both the health, wealth, and the connections in the communities in which that operates? I think that's great. I think, along the comments, what I'm seeing is a lot of interest in filling gaps with public dollars or other dollars to get food into the emergency situations, kind of complementing the existing market-driven system, whether it be with philanthropy, USDA, or other monies. And then there's a lot of concern around where these care money is going to go and how it's going to be applied, because that's pretty big dollars. And it could be just the beginning of a number of different things based on the signals out of the Congress. Andrew, Devona, any other themes or highlights you want to see, or others with their hand up? We got about 3 minutes left here.
I do have a quick poll for everybody around support about what we could offer. So if you're, you should see this pop up. It's just, should we do this again in a couple weeks? And basing on the notes and the questions from today, we can revise. And as we've said, we'll share the notes from this as well as pulling in from the chat the resources that were shared.
Right.
So I'll end the poll. 100%.
I think it might be useful too to go through the chat offline and kind of pull out some of the themes and see if we can come up with some priorities out of there.
It was really hard trying to keep on top of all of the chats coming in, but great thoughts. And I really appreciated seeing Diana's input on what's happening in Northwest Arkansas, and Jennifer, what's happening in North Carolina. Some great work happening all around the country, in South Carolina. And I want to know, and it's too late for this on this call, another one in the future, how can NCAT food hubs through serving the farmers? Meaning we work with and provide technical assistance to farmers directly. And so what is it that we can do to help serve farmers wherever better to meet your needs? And that's just something for folks to ponder.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we're right here at the top of the hour. If folks, it looks like someone said if someone wants to share their contact information, put that in there. But I want to thank you all. This has been great. I really want to thank our resource folks for being available and sharing their strategies and what they're seeing. And I want to thank all of you. And of course, NCAT, been a great partner on this. And it sounds like, based on the poll, we will see you again soon. So
it was a lot of fun. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
You too. Wear that mask.
Thank you.
There it is.
So many great comments.
Yeah, I'm noticing people are sharing putting their information.
On top of them.
So we'll share if they've put their email in here, we'll put that in the notes, I think. And then we can also we'll reach out to everyone that registered. There was over 300 people on that list with next steps, the notes and the recording.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for everything. Thanks for your partnership. It was fun. Love to see how we can do it again in a couple of weeks, if that's helpful. Really definitely want to figure out what we at NCAT can do to better serve farmers in this crazy time. So talking to them, as you know, was really important to me because they are a very important market for farmers.
Yeah, I think we can do maybe some breakouts next time we have more information on what topics people want to talk about. So we might be able to even do that. We're getting better at that every time. So
Yeah. Oh, I see Western Montana Growers Cooperative on. They were on too. It's so fabulous. They're a great group. Yeah, and so if you'd like, Andrew, we can set up a meeting and talk through it and see what we think next steps are. Just reach out and let me know what you need from me and what we should do.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'll get in touch after we get through these notes. All right.
All right. Thanks for everything. I'm going to sign off. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.